So a prism, what's a prism? Well, luckily, they define it for us. A three-dimensional object which has two bases or ends that have the same size and shape and are parallel to one another, and each of whose sides is a parallelogram. Okay, so for example, what they're saying here, what would this be called? Well, they tell us it's a right triangular prism. So what is the base that's the same? What shape is it's parallel to each other? The two triangles, right? The two triangles are parallel to each other. Would you agree with that? Yeah, and that's what we would call the base. The base here is a triangle. So that's why it's called a triangular prism. They say right because they're both parallel to each other. You could be parallel, but then not be at a 90-degree angle. So top here, bottom here. Like for example, let me see. Let me draw this. Here's an example. If they could still be parallel to each other, but it's not right. So it's slanty. Okay, that wouldn't be a right one. Do you see how it's like slanted? So right because our height is at a 90-degree angle, connecting those two bases. Okay, so right prisms, let's go, that leads into right prisms. Let's do purple. A right prism, oh, that's so dark. Sorry. It's beautiful music. I feel inspired right now. So a right prism is a prism whose sides are rectangular. So instead of parallelograms, these sides here are rectangles. That's what makes it right. They're not slanty, like I drew before. Okay, good times? Right rectangular prism, why is it called a rectangular prism? The base is, really you could, any two of the opposite sides could be your base. At the base are rectangles. And a cube is a special type of rectangular prism where all sides are equal. So it's a square base, but also the height is the same dimension as the side lengths of the square. Okay? Now what's really important is in grade 8, you developed a formula for volume, right? And the volume of any prism can be defined by okay, you're jumping ahead. Even before that formula is developed, was this one. The area of the base times the height. Okay? The area of the base times the height. So if we think that where you're getting length times width times height, that only works for a rectangular prism. Because in a rectangular prism, what is the area of the base? Length times width. Area of the base times the height. So that's the volume. And the area of the base is length times width. Hence where you get length times width times height. That only works in a rectangular prism. A triangular prism, would you have that same formula? No. In that case, we'd need the area of the triangle. So your volume in this case here, with the area of the triangle, I'm just going to draw a little triangle, times the height, this height. So you need to figure out that area somehow. They have to give you some information. And even with a cube, well, if in a cube you told me all sides are the same, right? Let's call them S. S, S, and S. Because I think that's what your formula sheet does. So what's the area of the base in this case? S squared, right? And what's the height? S, and so S squared times S gives you S cubed. And so that's where all these formulas came from, okay? Area of the base times the height. And that's for volume. Surface area, we add up all the faces, right? The area of each face added together. Now there was a formula for the rectangular. Do you remember it? For surface area? U2L7 plus 2 HW plus 2 W8. We did W and H. LH. There we go. Right? Surface area for a cube is pretty simple. Are all faces going to be the same? Because yes, and how many faces are there? 6. What's the area of one of them? S squared. S times S. Okay. I'm going to get you, look at this. Look at this. It's like it's important. Area of the base times. And then surface area, add the areas of all the surface faces. Okay, guess what? Grab your formula sheets. Okay, so calculators. On square root 13 squared, so hypotenuse minus the other side squared. Look how nice that worked out to be. Aww. 13 squared minus 5 squared is 144. Square root of 144 is 12. Look at us. So the height of the triangle is actually 12. All right. That equals, well, half of 10 is 5. 5 times 12 is 60. What would be my units? You don't have to put units in your substitution, just at your end, your final answer. Unlike physics or science, where you have to put the units throughout, you just have it at the end in math. Math is so much chiller than those science folks. Okay, the volume of the prism. So what's the formula for a volume of any prism? Area of the base times the height. Now usually they use big H, so that you don't confuse it with the height of maybe your shape. You can use little h, it's fine too. So what is big H? What's the height of our prism? The 6, right? That's the height we're talking about, the height of the prism. Do we know the area of the base? Yeah, it's 60. So 60 times 6, 360 centimeters what? Cubed. Centimeters cubed. And last, determine the surface area. Surface area is always a pain in the butt. Now the good thing about surface area, here, we already figured out the triangles, right? What was the area of the triangle? The area was 60. Good. So we just have to figure out what? The rectangles. Now, are they all going to be the same? No. Okay, what about this rectangle here? This side rectangle and this side rectangle, are those the same? Yes. So we have two rectangles with a dimension of what? 13 by 6. Hey. No, don't do that. 13 by 6. And we have one rectangle. That's the dimension of 10 by 6. Okay, so the area of here is 13 by times 6, or 13 times 6. 60 plus 18 is 78. And there's two of those, so what do we have to do with that? Multiply it by 2. 2 times 78 is 156. And the one on the base, the other rectangle, 10 times 6 is 60. So the total surface area, 60 plus 60 plus 156. No. Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you. How many triangles do we have? 2. You're right. So that would be 2 times 60. So the total area here is 120. That's better. Thank you. Which gives you 336 centimeters squared. I'm gonna pause the video. Record. All right, you need to memorize this. I'm just kidding. Okay, so these, if you need this info, it would be given in the question. Okay, so if I wanted you to convert a certain volume into milliliters, I will give you this conversion in the question. So you don't have to memorize that it's a good thing to know that 1 centimeter cubed is 1 milliliter. That's how it was developed, right? But if you need any of these conversions, they'll just be given to you. Okay, you don't have to, they're not on your formula sheet, so we would put them in the test if you need it. Okay, skip number 2. We're moving on. Cancel it out. So you've seen cylinders before, right? So really quickly, we're going to go through number 2, yeah? Turn the page. The formula for the area of a circle, what is it? Pi r squared. So when you open up and look at the net of a cylinder, you've done this before in junior high, right? You have 2 circles, and then the side opens up to a rectangle, right? Now the dimensions of this rectangle, which is normally length times width, this length here of the rectangle is the same thing as the circumference of the circle, because it was wrapped around the circle. What is the formula for circumference of a circle?
2 pi r squared.
2 pi r, or yeah, we'll use 2 pi r. It's also pi d, but we'll use 2 pi r. So this dimension here, circumference, is 2 pi r. And then the width is also known of a cylinder as the height of the cylinder, right? It would be the same as the height. And so the rectangular area is 2 pi r times h. Okay? So guess where you're going to find this formula sheet, It's on your formula sheet. So if you look at your formula sheet here, okay, bottom, there's a cylinder, and there's 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. You need to understand what the 2 pi r squared stands for. What's the 2 pi r squared stand for? The 2 circles, the area of the 2 circles. Okay? And you need to understand that 2 pi r h is just so that one day when I ask you a question to find the surface area of something like this, you have a cylinder with 2 hemispheres on top and the bottom. So one hemisphere on top, one on the bottom. Would you need to include this interior circle here in your area? No, but surface area is just exposed surface. That's not exposed, right? And so if that was the case, if I'm looking for surface area, and the surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h, I don't need which part? The first part, the 2 pi r squared, the 2 circles. Okay? So you have to understand your formulas so that you can adapt them when we have more complex shapes coming up soon. Okay? And the volume, area of the base times the height. So for any prism, what is the area of the base of a cylinder? What shape is the base? The circle. And what's the area of a circle? Pi r squared. So pi r squared h, that's where that comes from. The area of your base is pi r squared times the height of the prism. Okay? Guess where that's? Formula sheet. Okay? All right, let's look at the next page. Let's actually look at a cylinder. Yay. Calculate the volume and surface area of a cylindrical can whose height is 15.4. So this is where I'm going to judge your drawings. How good can you draw a cylinder? Well, don't judge mine. Whose height is 15.4 and whose diameter. So anytime a line is drawn all the way across, they're talking about the diameter. Okay? if you're looking at your workbook and they're like, the line goes all the way through the center and across, they're giving you the diameter, which is 10.2. Okay, we want to do two things. What are we looking for here? Volume, surface area. Am I going too fast? You're okay. Okay. So volume first. What's the formula for the volume of a cylinder? On your formula sheet, pi r squared h. Do we know pi? Of course we do. Do we know our radius? What is the radius? Half the diameter. So remember, your radius is your diameter divided by 2. In this case, 5.1. So we do know that, and do we know our height? Yes, so let's find the volume. Do not type in 3.14. You must use the pi symbol. Okay? And don't even write 3.14, just write pi. Okay?
Wait, because it's saying radius squared, can't we just keep it as...
No, squared is not the same thing as doubled.
Oh,
right. Times 15.4. Okay, type that in your calculators. So second, the little hat is where the pi symbol is. It's right above the division. Second hat, the power of button, times 5.1 squared. So you need to push the squared button, times 15.4. You can type this in a few different ways. You could just use multiplication like that, brackets. Okay, all of that's good. To one decimal place would be 1,258.4. This isn't so bad, actually. Centimeters. Cubed, good. Surface area. Formula is, I'd like you to write out your formulas on your tests. Formula, substitution, answer. FSA. FSA. Okay? Formula, substitution, answer. It's a good habit. 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. So let's do that. 2 pi, radius is 5.1 squared plus 2 pi 5.1 times 15.4. So type that in your calculator. Make sure you can type it in. I'll wait for you guys. Check that you get the same thing. It's really a travesty when you have the right work, but you typed it in wrong. Losing marks for that is just not right. Okay, we're almost done. Good job, guys. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, well, we're just gonna plow through. A commercial garbage bin is in the shape of a cube, whose volume is. Yeah. So they like drop off in front of houses that you're building or whatever. Okay, this time they give us the volume. So because they gave me the volume, I want to look up the formula for volume. For cube. They gave me a cube, and they gave me the volume of the cube. So I grab my formula sheet, and when I'm processing this, I'm like, okay, they give me volume of a cube. Where is the volume of a cube? Where's the formula for that? Yeah, over here, S cubed. So they tell me that, okay, volume is equal to side cubed. That's so far what I know. It's also important to know what they're asking. What are they asking here? The dimensions. What do we know about the dimensions about a cube? They're going to be all the same. And in this case, what variable would they be? S. They're all the S's based on the formula, right? Where would I go from here? Cube root, yes, because we can replace volume with 60.24, right, in the formula. But we want S by itself, and to get rid of the power of 3, we want the opposite operation. So we will cube root to get S by itself. Can you see that all right at the back? Should I zoom in? Is that better? I'm sure that is. Okay, so how do we cube root something? Math 4. 60.24. 3.92. It says to the nearest centimeter equals S. So to the nearest centimeter would be 4. Okay, we're going to do this guy. Toblerone. Who doesn't love Toblerone? So good. It's the shape of a triangular prism. Something like that. It says Toblerone on the side. Okay, anyways. I don't have time for that. A triangular face has a base of 3.7 and a height of 3.2. So they're talking about the triangle here, right? This height here is 3.2. If the space in the empty box has a volume, they give me the volume of 123.7 centimeters cubed, determine the length of the box. Okay, so first thing they give me is a triangular prism, right? Would you agree it's a triangular prism? It is a prism. What is the formula for volume of a triangular prism? So the area of the triangle times the height. Which variable here are we looking for in the formula? Would you agree that the length of the box is the same thing as the height of our prism? Right? If we turn it up, right? We turn the box because it's what two shapes are parallel to each other? It's the triangulars. Triangles. That's how you say that. So the height, right, is the same thing as the length of the box. So we're looking for H. Do we know volume? Yes. Do we know the area of the triangle? Could we find that out? Yeah, let's do that. What's the formula for the area of the triangle? Base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 base times height. So 3.7 times 3.2 divided by 2. This is our last question, if that makes you feel better. Okay. 1/2 times 3.7 times 3.2 gives us 5.92. Okay. So we can replace that in our formula area of the triangle, right? We know the area of the triangle now. Let's replace that with 5.92. Do we know what h is? No, that's what we're looking for. So how do I get h by itself? Divide by 5.92. Okay, what does that equal? Plug her in. So 123.7. We see to the nearest, they give us rounding instructions.
So the nearest 10th of a centimeter.
Here's 10th, which is 20.9. It's a word problem. You should write a sentence. Therefore, the length is 20.9. Have you ever seen those three dots before? Okay, some of you yes, some of you no. That means therefore. And I'm pretty sure if the dots were upside down, it means because. That's because. You could. I am lazy. That's how we do it in math in the proof. Use three dots. All right, so that's the end of the lesson. Your assignment, if you can circle the following for your 4-day weekend. Number 2, okay, is the first one. So all of 2. You don't have to do 3, but 4. 5A only, so you don't have to do B or C. No 6. 7 is a yes. 8 is a yes. No 9. And no 10. And then 11. And no 12 or 13. So that's just it. Okay? That's your assignment. How much time do we have? We have 5 minutes.